So we're talking about branch transformation. So by a show of hands, is anybody actually in the process of transforming their branch? Anybody? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, good, because you guys can provide feedback for real life. I love that because, I do a lot of studies with a lot of financial institutions and work with a lot of bank CEOs and their strategic boards. But it's nice to have people in the room to talk about what they're doing, and I think it helps everybody else. So I would very much like your participation because you'll see concepts that you've gone through, and then you can add some real life. So just raise your hand and say, hey, I got something to say on that, okay? So let's start with the branch. So what's wrong with this picture? Anybody? No customers, right? Absolutely. No employees. Somebody over here said no employees, right? There is one employee. Hi, way back in the back. There she is, one employee. But truly, no employees, no customers. And this is a very profitable financial institution. It's a community bank. It's not a huge regional bank or Wells Fargo branch or anything like that. It's a community bank where I live. And not a lot of people. Could be your branch, right? One of your branches, probably any Tuesday at 10 o'clock, right? Wouldn't you think? Very similar to most of the branches these days in the United States. A lot of branch space, not a lot of people in the actual branch. The only locations I know of, and I travel all across the country, the only locations I know of that actually don't look like this ever are in the islands. It's crazy. I can't figure it out. Like, do you ever go to Hawaii or have you ever been to Puerto Rico? Their branches are slammed all day long. They still have, remember we used to have those Disney lines, right, that were right in there? Their branches are completely slammed. And I don't understand it because if you've ever spent time, who's been to the islands? Who's been to Hawaii or who's been to, okay, traffic. How long does it take you to get anywhere on the island? It takes forever to go 5 minutes. So for the life of me, and there's been studies done on this, for the life of me, cannot figure out why people actually go to the bank in the islands. It makes me crazy because it takes forever to get there. And when you get there, you have to stand in line. But they do offer some different services, so I'll talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, so this could be any of your branches, right? Pretty much any Tuesday, Thursday of the week could be your branch. What do you think's going on over here? Do you think this person is just out to lunch? No. That person doesn't use that desk anymore. Right? That person is maybe redeployed in a different area of the bank, right? I was working with a bank that was going through transformation, and it was the funniest thing because the CEO and the executive staff, they were all on board, right? They were like, we have got to do something different. But they had one of these beautiful desks that they had bought quite a while ago, and it was like, I'm not giving up that desk. I bought that desk. I love that desk. It's staying in our lobby. And it was really, really amazing how that was holding the bank back. A stupid piece of furniture, right, that somebody bought years ago. So, no, I don't think she's probably at lunch. I think she's most likely deployed, he or she, to somewhere else in the bank. So let's look at some stats, just a couple of metrics. So I would think this is relative to everybody's bank pretty much in the community banking market. So 80% of the deposits in your bank are held by baby boomers. Would you agree with that? Okay. 80% is held by baby boomers. 19% Gen X, Gen Y, and then 1% is held by Gen Z, which is like my daughter, right? But this group overall constitutes some form of the generation of millennials, right? 80%. So 80%, I would say, of your time as bankers is spent with baby boomers because that's where the money is. You always follow the money. So that's where the money is. So 80% of your time is typically spent with that group of people. So $41 trillion is currently held by the baby boomers, and $41 trillion is going to generationally be passed down to millennials and beyond. $41 trillion. So if you're spending all the time with the baby boomers at your bank, well, then you better be telling them who to give the money to so that you know where it's going, because otherwise, in the next 8 to 12 years, much of the $41 trillion in deposits will be passed down to their kids. Huge amount of money, right? Huge amount of money. So $41 trillion, many of you have these deposits in your bank, is going to be passed down. So how many of you have a plan for that? A documented, written down, strategic, shared with every employee that necessarily needs to see in the bank plan? Yeah, not many. A couple years ago, I actually was flying back to Denver on the plane, and I sat next to a professor at CU, and we started talking, and it was really funny because I don't normally talk on planes because I fly so much you never get anything done, or that's your time to sleep, or you just read a book, or you follow up on notes or whatever. So, but he was kind of a chatty guy, so I ended up talking to him, and he was a professor, and he taught a sales education class at CU. So because of my background, I've been in consulting and sales my whole career since I came out of college. And so he asked me if I would mentor a couple students. So for the last couple of years, I mentor a couple students every semester at CU. I don't know if you have any extra time or if you could do that, but what a gas. I mean, it is a very fun experience to work with these people. And sometimes they're men, sometimes they're women, young women. It just so happens right now I have 2 young women. And they could not be any more different than the same. Totally. I mean, it is just funny. So my first student, her name's Ella, and Ella is graduating in next April, end of April, beginning of May, and she has no idea what she's doing. She's in her 5th year. Very bright young lady, so don't think it's because she's not a smart cookie. She's a very bright young lady. No idea, no prospect for a job, but I'm not quite sure that's because she hasn't started looking yet, because she is employable. I would think from hiring, I've worked for a $10 billion company, hired a lot of people, think she's employable. But she's still trying to decide what she's passionate about. 6 months before graduation. So she is. So we set up our thing. We set up our first call by email because I don't live in Boulder. So I set up our first call by email. So what do you think happened? Any guess? She didn't show up. First call, didn't show up. Okay. My second student, Jenna. She, I'm sure, was on that line 15 minutes before, right? Had sent me an outline of what we wanted to talk about, all those different things. Ella didn't show up. So how long will you guys wait for an appointment? Say it's an appointment with a customer, well, that's maybe a little different, but appointment with a vendor or somebody like that, and it's a phone call. How long will you wait? I'll wait 10 minutes. How long? 5. Ooh, good to know. Good to know, right? 35 minutes later, Ella called me. And I answered the phone because I'm like, okay, this is my job, right? I'm her mentor. I'm supposed to help her see that you don't just show up. And plus, I was kind of curious, right? Like, what happened to her? Because she had picked the time. I didn't even pick the time. She picked the time. So I was like, okay. Let's see what happens. So I'm like, hi, Ella, it's Chris. She says, oh, hi, Chris. I'm sorry I'm late for our appointment. And I was like, Ella, you're pretty much late and almost over our appointment. I told her, I said, Ella, professional people are busy and just common courtesy. I said, so I'm just curious, why are you late? And she said, well, I was at my job and my boss asked me to work another hour. And so I told her I would. And I said, okay, so do you not have a cell phone? Could you not have said, hello, boss. I have another commitment, but I'm sure she won't mind. I'll call her or text her. She's like, oh, I didn't think of that. Didn't think of that. Do you think her boss asked her? No way. She forgot about the phone call. I truly believe she forgot about the phone call, right? She had no idea. So millennials, and not that some of us don't do that as well, right? We've all forgotten one or two appointments, but to her, it didn't actually even faze her. And I'm part of her grade. So the first impression I had with her is that she really didn't maybe care about this mentorship or this class, right? So very interesting. Now, I've had 4 calls with her, and she's made on time to every call, which is good. And so by the second call, the third call, actually, she was sending me an agenda. I'm like, which is always helpful, so I know what we're going to talk about, and don't send it to me 5 minutes before, right? So millennials are a force that are in the labor workforce. They're a force in the financial services because the money is going to transfer to them, and we have to know how to reach them. So, good question, right? Will millennials be interested in banking with you? We all want them to bank with us, right? They have to. We have to have them. But what do you think? Do you think they want to bank with you? Just raise your hands. Look at that, $41 trillion running out the door of the embassy suites. Yeah, we've got to find a way, right? We've got to find a way to get them to bank with us and hopefully actually use our branches, right? But to do that, our service expectations have to change because their service expectations are changing. Their expectation is that you will bank them differently than you banked the baby boomer community, right? Some simple things, and Kelly had mentioned in her presentation as well, right? They're instant gratification people, they're tech savvy people, tech dependent people, right? So we have to change our service expectations.